Hi there, good to see you all again. Welcome to another online sociology lesson. We are looking today at alternatives to families. So we've already looked at the definition of a family. That's there for you in the, what is that, salmon, peach, in the box in the middle of the screen. That's the definition of a family, and we've looked at how the nuclear family is known as the cereal packet family, how the nuclear family is essentially the kind of traditional normal family in the UK, and we've begun that discussion as to whether the nuclear family is losing its place as the kind of most important British family, given the rise and decline of certain family groups. However, this definition of a family, a group of two or more people linked together by birth, marriage, adoption, or cohabitation based on a long-term relationship, doesn't cover every single person living in the UK, because not everybody lives with other people. There are people who live on their own. They're technically not a family. Not everyone lives with people that they have been born from, married to, adopted to, cohabited. There are different types of what we call households in the United Kingdom that we will not class sociologically as families. Okay, and what we're going to do today is have a look at some of the most common alternatives to families in the United Kingdom. So, to start with, I'm going to introduce you to this term, households. I want you to write this definition down next to this key term. A household is a group of people who live together at the same address, but who are not connected by birth, adoption, marriage, or cohabitation. So they all share the same address, all the post comes to the same front door, but they are not a family. They are a household, a little bit like Joey and Chandler from Friends. They lived in the same house, but they're not brothers, they're not married, they're not in a long-term relationship, they're just friends, and therefore they are a household, not a family. Okay, so you've got a table here, if I can get my words out, of 7 different scenarios. What you need to do is decide. You can just point at the screen and you can just say F or H. You need to decide if they're families or households. Once you've done that, I want you to pause the video. Once you've done that, press play again and I'll go over the answers. Okay, go for it. Okay, so hopefully you've had a good go at that and you've had an idea of what the different scenarios are. Remember, they could be both. It could be both a family and a household, and I'll explain a little bit more about that when we get to those ones. To start with, a group of students at university sharing a flat. That's a household. Remember, they are a group of students, group of friends maybe. They're not family related, they're not married, blah, 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 and therefore they are a household, not a family. An unmarried couple who have been together for 10 years, but first moved in together 2 weeks ago. What do you put for that one? That's a family. The reason that's a family, you look at the definition of families, cohabitation based on a long-term relationship. This unmarried couple, which tells you they're cohabiting because they're living together without being married, they have been together for 10 years. So we would class that as a long-term relationship. Therefore, when they moved in 2 weeks ago, they became a family, okay? Because they're living together and they've been in a relationship together for a long time. Parents and children, this is the third one, living in the same house as the mother's parent. That's a family. Now, can you remember which type of family that is? Obviously, I can't actually hear you speaking at the screen right now, but that's an extended family, okay? Because you've got the nuclear family, so parents and children, living with mum's parents, so they're living with grandparents, and therefore they're all part of that kind of extended family. Great. A lodger, number 4, renting a room in a family home. Is it a household? Is it a family? It's actually both. Okay, so you've got the family home. Let's, for the sake of argument, say this is a nuclear family. Okay, so you've got mum, dad and 2 kids living in a house together. They are a family. The lodger being with them isn't sociologically and technically part of their family, which means that they are both a family, i.e. the nuclear family is a family, but also the lodger here makes up part of a wider household. So they're technically both. Okay, number 5, bottom left, a couple who met on Tinder in March and have been locked down together. You know, there's been a rise of people living together through lockdown because basically couples that met at the start of the year have gone, well, we either lock down together and live together and we stay, you know, living together, or we don't see each other for the next 2, 3, 4 months. And a lot of people have really actually bitten the bullet and gone in to move in with someone who they met like 2 weeks before. And some of it's gone well, some of it's gone not so well. Either way, that's a household, okay? Because they are not married, they are not mother, father, child relationship, and they are cohabiting, but they've only been together since March. Or they met in March, they've not really been together that long. Okay, so it's a household, not yet a family. I don't know exactly when we define long-term relationship, but in my opinion, a little bit more than 2 months. But I know when you're a teenager, that feels like forever. Moving on to the next one, mother, father, and their dependent children. That is obviously a family. That's a nuclear family. And the final one, a married couple providing foster care. So foster care is, if you don't quite know this, you might not be able to answer this question without knowing what this key term means. Foster care is when parents adults look after a child for a set amount of time. Okay, so it's not a long-term adoption. The child is looked after by this parent or parents or adult or adults. They are looked after for a set amount of time, but eventually that time will run out and they'll go on to another foster carer unless that foster family decides to legally permanently adopt them. Okay, so it's kind of short-term care for children who require looking after for whatever reason, which means it is both, again, a family and a household, because the family is the married couple and the household is when they are looking after the child in the foster caring. So they are both a family and a household at the same time. This hopefully has clarified rather than confused your understanding of households and families, but by all means go back over this if you need to refresh your memory at any point. We're going to move forwards now. So if you want to pause this video and write down a few examples of households, use the ones that are purely H. So the university students and the couple that met on Tinder. Okay, they're the best ones to use as a household. If you want to put examples down, you can, and then we're going to move on to looking at the next slide. Now, obviously, not all households look the same. There are a rise of one person or solo or lone person households, also called singletons, which is also the name of one of our history teachers, Miss Singleton. She's married and has children. She doesn't live on her own, otherwise that would be almost the perfect name. One-person households is rising in the UK. We're going to look at a table on the next slide, and I would like you to study it, and I'd like you to answer the questions that follow, which means you're going to need to pause the video again. I would like you to think primarily about 2 things. These will come up in the questions. Which age group is seeing a rise in one-person households and why? Okay, have a think about those 2 things. So here is the table. Singletons in the UK. You can see here that there are 2 rows, 2005 and 2015. This was the 2 different dates that this survey was completed. It doesn't make it a longitudinal study because it's different groups of people, but they just did a whole national-wide survey to find out who's living on their own. And age groups are 16-24, 25-44, 45-64, 65-74, and 75 plus. And all of these numbers are in millions. Okay, so when you see bottom right 7.74, that is 7.74 million people. Okay, so it's quite a lot of people in total who are living alone in the UK. So 4 questions. The best way of you doing this probably is to write that table out, unless you want to print screen this slide and print that screen off. So sorry about that. You either have to write this table out or print screen it. If you do print screen it and you don't want to keep this space in your book, then just cut the little corner out when you print out the page, because truth be told, no one needs this in their sociology book. In fact, that's going to cause severe trauma going forwards. So get the table in your book somehow and answer those 4 questions. Again, you're going to have to pause the video, and when you come back, this guy has done the work as well, and I'm going to give you the answers. So don't cheat. Do the work and then pause it and then come back. Okay? Good. Right, so of course you've all done the work and you've all written the answers already, because you're all fantastic human beings. If you have skipped this video forwards and you are looking at the answers without having done the work, then you are a liar and a cheat. I want you to go back and do the work. Okay, question 1. How many living in 2015 lived alone? 7.74 million people in total lived alone in 2015. Okay, I'm not sure how that number has risen or fallen since then, but that was the amount in that date. So give it a tick if you got it right. If you got it wrong, then change it. Which age group had the biggest increase in solo living between 45 to 64-year-olds? So you can see that in 2005 there was 1.27 million. Sorry, no, incorrect. 2 million. I'm looking at the wrong column. 2 million people in 2005 lived alone in that age group. Okay, in 2015 that had risen by nearly 500,000 people, and that was the largest individual increase out of all the age categories. So that's the answer to question 2. Question 3: in which age groups did the numbers fall? So from 2005 to 2015 the numbers decreased. That is the 2 youngest, so 16 to 24-year-olds and 25 to 44-year-olds. So something's happening amongst the younger people, which means that we have less young people living alone, but more old people living alone. Why is that? Question 4 has just answered question 3 for you. So why is there an increase in one-person households amongst the older generations, but a decrease amongst young generations? There is a number of options you can have here. Okay, now I'm going to give you all of them, and I would like you to write any down that you didn't get, and I'm not expecting you to get any or all of them at this point, because we're just beginning our studies of families. The more we do the families unit, the more you're going to spot these trends cropping up of things like cost of living, etc., etc. But it's all quite new to you right now, and I understand that, so don't worry if you got a lot of these wrong or you didn't get anything for this question at all. It's a tough one. So the reasons are, I'm going to explain them all one by one. First of all, people are living longer than ever before. Okay, it's now very, very common for somebody to live well into their 80s, maybe even 90s. If you're Colonel Tom, you're 100. People are living longer, and because of that, more and more older people are going into care homes, because what's happening is, because people are living longer, and science and medicine has got better, less people are dying from kind of diseases of the body, and instead are becoming older and therefore suffering with diseases of the mind, such as dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. So what that means is they're going into care homes and leaving behind a partner who lives in the house that they've shared for however many years. So that is one of the reasons why we are seeing a rise amongst older generations because we've got more older people now living on their own because their partner's gone into a care home. We are also seeing a rise in the divorce rates amongst older couples. Historically, and we'll look at why this is in another topic, but historically there's been a bit of shame regarding older people getting divorced. All people really, but certainly older people, and now there's that much more freedom to do that. And obviously if you've got a married couple who divorce, that's suddenly 2 more single person households, because they were both living together and now they're living separately. That's 2 households. That's an increase of 2 to that overall figure. There's quite a sharp rise in older people getting divorced and therefore a sharp rise in the figures. And finally, for younger people, the cost of living has increased, which means less young people can afford to live on their own. So more young people are either living with parents or living with friends or living with a partner. They're not living on their own as much because it just costs too much for one person to afford a house and rent and all the stuff that comes with it. So they're living together to pool their economic resources, also known as cash, together to be able to survive, basically. They're the reasons. Jot them down if you haven't already. Brilliant. Well, okay. There's a couple of other types of households that are not families, technically, and I'm going to kind of whiz through these a little quicker just because they are kind of important to know, but we won't spend too much time on them. So we first of all got looked after children. Now, looked after children include people like children in foster care, or children in certain homes, basically children who are in the care sector for whatever reason. So children who can't live at home with their kind of biological families but are looked after by others. Now, there is around about 70,000 children in the UK, in England, sorry, who are classed as looked after. And they would just be another group of children who don't get classed sociologically as a family. They have a biological family, but they're not living with them currently, is kind of the best way of explaining it. Don't worry about this red task, we're not going to do that today. Residential care, again, this is another one. We've had a rise in it over the last few years. More and more older people, or people who have disabilities and just need support with their day-to-day lives, live in things like residential homes, care homes, nursing homes, etc. In 2011, that was the last census. We're going to see another census next year and get an updated figure on this. But 2011, 3.2% of people aged 65 plus lived in care homes. We'll probably see a rise in the next census. I'm not quite sure how much that will rise to. So we know the answer to that question in red because you've done that on the last slide, so don't worry about doing it on this one. So just jot the 2 bits in black down and then you can move on. Right, I've got a quiz. If you're anything like me, lockdown has just been full of like Zoom quizzes with your mates, and it's great because I love seeing my friends, but it gets a bit tiring after a while. So here's another one for you, just in case you're not already highly bored of them. True or false? Just shout out to a screen, true or false, and I'm going to go through all of them, and then I'm going to go through all the answers. Okay, excellent. Right, to be a family, there must be children involved. Is that true or false? All vote now. A lone parent family is the most common family type in the UK. Is that true or false? Family diversity is on the rise in the UK. Is that true or false? An extended family is when there are many generations of one family but only a few left in each generation. Is that true or is that false? Parents who foster children are not sociologically considered families. True or false? You have not got to get married to become a family. False or true? In order to be a family, there must be children involved. Right. This is exactly right. This is the first question. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer to this one now. You can see that I'm very well prepared for this lesson. That is false, as we know, because a family can be 2 or more people. So you could have a couple who are married, like myself and the very, very unlucky Mrs. Bowdery, who are technically a family. We've not got children, but we are still a family because we're linked by marriage. Right, a lone parent family is the most common family type in the UK. That is false. It's a nuclear family, making up the bulk of families in the United Kingdom. Next one, family diversity is on the rise in the UK. Well, that is true, and many factors such as different laws, same-sex marriage, Divorce Reform Act, differences in stigma, social attitudes, immigration have all contributed to the rise in the past 40 years. Next one. That's false. That's a beanpole family. Tall and thin, beanpole family. Short and fat, extended family. Next one. Parents who foster children are not sociologically considered families. That is true. Okay, sociologically speaking, different to what it feels like in your heart, but sociologically speaking, children must either be adopted or born within that family to be considered part of that family. Okay, as I said, different to how you feel personally within your heart, but looking at the sociology side of it, that's true. And finally, you have not got to get married to become a family. That's true, because cohabitation based on a long-term relationship can be also seen as a family. Wunderbar. Right, this is going to go up onto Show My Homework, and you're going to have a go at doing this lesson. You've probably done it as we go, so once you've reached this point, you probably haven't got to do anything else. Next lesson, I'm going to set you a research task, and I'm also going to give you a quiz based on all that you have learned so far. So please make sure you have been up to date. Right, I'm going to go have a lie down. Bye-bye.